Hello music lovers and welcome to the first Woodshed of 2021. I was always obsessed with the 90s Eddie Van Halen guitar tones. The carnal knowledge, the balance, those records sounded huge to me, and they had a little something called wet, dry, wet. Now this meant you had 3 amplifiers, 3 cabinets, you had a dry amp down the middle, and then your effects, your left and right stereo delays, your pitch shift would be on each of your wet amps and your cabinets. So if you have a lot of money and you can buy a rig that's expensive and you got 3 of everything, then hey, this is no problem for you. But what if you've only got one piece of gear, specifically something from Fractal, whether it be an Axe 8, an Axe FX 3, something like that? I've always struggled with how to get the wet, dry, wet. It's never been available that I've ever seen on the internet. A lot of guys are trying to do it with multi-delays, and a lot of guys would come out of the Axe FX using a lot of different inputs on their interface. I actually saw a guy the other day who was using a Palmer speaker box and like loading down the amp and getting it into his Apollo using 3 inputs, and there's all these different ways to do it. I wanted to be able to come out of the stereo Axe FX left and right as if I was going to send it to front of house, if I was going to send it to a recording engineer, however I wanted to do it, and I just wanted to be able to nail that Van Halen tone. So I figured out how to do it and I'm going to share it with you. Let's dive in. So first things first, let's take a listen to some of those Van Halen riffs and just see how close we got. Keep in mind, I'm not using a Van Halen guitar or a Van Halen amp. I'm using a Suhr guitar and a Fractal Axe FX. Let's hear it. All right, first things first, we got to get a fundamental tone that makes sense. Obviously, I don't have the Wolfgang. This is just a Sur Modern. It's got the D series pickups in it. It's mahogany. It's got a little more mids. It's a little more honky than the EVH guitars. But let's jump over here to the amp. I want to show you the amp settings. As you can see, I got the mids dipped really hard. Those 90s records had lower mids, and also I think the basswood and the the maple, all the stuff that Ed was using then, it was a little more level, and this guitar is a little more honky. Okay, so let's look at that. There's nothing crazy. Bass, treble, mids are low. Presence is there. It's all pretty much when you get online and you look at Ed's settings, it's really relative. With the mids up, a little more modern, a little more chunky. Let's pull them back down. So I like to always test when I'm doing this thing for this kind of thing. And it sounds like it, right? Not too much gain. This is the 5153 100-watt red channel. Let's go over to the cabinet model. It's a 121. I didn't get crazy with all of the IR mixing. You know, in the studio, you'd probably mix a SM57 microphone with a 121. You'd have all these different combinations. But for the sake of this video, this is just a 121 cabinet on a 5153 cab. As you can see, I dumped the low cut. I don't like the tone to be super flubby and out of control, so that's where I do it. I do not do it in the amp block. All right, let's get to the good stuff. The thing that I was trying to chase down was the idea of wet, dry, wet within the Axe effects without using any line outs, without going into the interface with multiple inputs. I just wanted to get that tone of wet, dry, wet in the Axe effects, just right here. So here's my signal chain: in, amp, cab, pitch, delay 1, delay 2, out. So when I was chasing this down, I was like, oh man, maybe I need to do a multi-delay. I maybe need to put the grid, like put a delay up here, put a delay down here, and have a three-way kind of, it's like, and it never worked. Basically, everything I tried didn't work. This is what worked. Let's get to the good stuff. Delay 1. If you look in the simplest digital mono, let's hear the guitar without it. Let's hear delay 1. What happens is we want to keep the center guitar. We do not want to lose center guitar. Usually when you're using stereo delays, it leans the guitar one way or the other, and it's not keeping the center guitar while adding a side of delay. So the way I did that, one digital mono block, and if you look right here at the echo pan, it's all the way to the left. Now listen. So it still sounds like the main guitar is in the center, and now we have our left. So we've got our wet for our left. It's set at 500 milliseconds. Still sounds super punchy down the middle. Let's turn that off. Let's add the delay for the right. Same thing, except it's a quicker delay. This is at 375, but again, here's the deal. You're using a digital mono block right there. This is the simplest delay in the Axe effects, and taking the pan and slamming it all the way to the right. That keeps your main guitar right in the middle, and it adds the stereo. Now let's add both delays at the same time. So what we're doing is we're sending our middle chain of dry guitar straight down the middle, like a wet, dry, wet, like a real guitar rig, and with multiple cabinets, multiple power amps, etc. We've got the main guitar right down middle. We're going to have our left, which is going to be our long delay, and our right, which is going to be our shorter delay, and here they both are. Okay. So now the delays sound wet, dry, wet, which is the most important thing. So instead of fighting this same problem with the pitch block, I found that you can essentially mix your pitch block in. So when I add my pitch shift, which is my detune, I got 8.5 down, 8.5 up. It's always somewhere in there, right? Like if you listen to the records, I don't ever think that it's 100% this specific magic number that Ed used. It always just sounds in the ballpark of 8.5 or 9. Maybe 10 on some, maybe 11, but it's always just in just 9 to 11 cents up or down. Right now, it sounds the most accurate to me at around 8.5. So again, let's look at what's happening. Detune in voice 1, panned all the way to the left. All right. detune in voice 2, panned all the way to the right. And that detune is actually pushing that up. Now here's the deal. I am mixing it in right here. So I still have my dry signal. At least to my ears, it feels like it's dry in the middle, and the mix of blend is the panned voices on each side. So now let's hear it with everything on. It sounds right? It sounds like the Ed thing to me. Let's go through it one more time. I don't want to take up too much of your time here. Here's with nothing on, and I'm going to walk you through it one more time. Dry guitar. Let's add in delay number 1, which we've got 100% pan to the left, 500 milliseconds. Dry guitar, all the echoes are on the left. We're going to recreate that same patch, except it's going to be its evil doppelganger, and he's going to be on the right, and he's going to be panned all the way to the right, but a shorter delay. Remember, look, 375 on that side, 500 on the other. Let's add them both in. Now you get that doubling thing. The wet, dry, wet has happened. Now let's add in the pitch block. Right, so now I feel like we've done it. We've done it really simple. One of the last little things I want to add that's cool, go into your input block, depending on your guitar and the output of your pickups, and use your threshold and ratio to delete delete any more ambient noise. As you can tell, quiet as a mouse, right? And we got this monstrous tone happening. So that's it. I hope you enjoy that. And I was really stoked to discover this. So happy shredding. Long live the king. Eddie Van Halen forever. Well, thank you guys so much for joining me on this adventure. If you want the patch, you can purchase it from my website. You could also get it from joining my Patreon. Patreon, even if you're a $5 tier, I'll be giving away this patch to everyone who's a Patreon member. And if you're a $25 sub, then you can join in our weekly group lesson. Think of it like a clinic or a master class. We do it 4 times a month, and it's available from everyone from my combo amp, which is my $25 sub, and higher. So if you want to jump in, you want to do lessons, but you can't afford private one-on-one, may I suggest that. And as well, you can get all the tones and backing tracks and tabs and things like that. Thank you guys so much for joining me. We'll see you next week.